10 years ago, I had a fusion for S1, L3, or L4, or whatever it is back there, lower back. And that worked perfectly. And then now it's my neck and my disc replaced in, you know, in my neck. It's a whole thing. So
just at some point, there's going to be no original spine left.
I'm hoping that I'm bionic so I can keep on going because, I like this place.
Obviously this one has interrupted well, not interrupted, I guess just completely just stopped a tour before it started. I assume that happened last time too. It's got to be, even when it's not at its worst, it's got to be really difficult touring, I assume.
Yeah, you can't tour with like super injuries to your spine. It's just too hard. And and just postpone a few shows or a tour with Jerry Cantrell. Unfortunately, sadly, we can't do it. But I'm trying to rehabilitate. I'm doing all my physical therapy and everything I can to get back in shape to go back out. So it's tough going. It's a bummer being a human being, but like at some point you gotta pay the piper. I mean, when I was a kid, I was so crazy on stage that I really kind of injured myself a lot, and I'm paying for it now, I guess.
I'm guessing that to a large extent, this has also just impacted the way you are on stage.
Yeah, you can't move around as much and you have to take it easy, but it doesn't affect the show too much.
Are you good with the PT thing? That's something I need to get better at, is consistency with that stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Every day I work on it, so. But who cares?
I do. I'm going to say it's interesting to me, and I suspect it's interesting to a lot of people because, like, this is, you hit a certain point in your life, and it's like, I think most people deal with this to a certain extent.
Yeah, everybody's got aches and pains they have to deal with,
The back probably being the most common one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this is also like release day for you too, right?
Yeah, this is the release of the Algorithm, the Ultra Edition, which is Algorithm Ultra Edition. And I'm psyched it's finally out. I really wanted people to hear my YouTube cover because I really enjoyed doing it. And I also enjoyed doing the bad guy cover from Billie Eilish, which is a completely different take on her version. But the YouTube version is straight up tribute. Like it's like, like I'm trying to channel their awesomeness and improve on it hopefully. And and the remixes, Charlie Clouser and Sean Bevan and myself and Julian Gray all did great remixes of different songs. And Obliteration was Charlie and Sean and I. And then Burn Out the Sun was Julian Gray. He's amazing as an artist. And lots of good stuff.
In the case of the covers, are those songs that were like recorded in the initial session and just didn't make it onto the album the first time?
I had them laying around. I had the YouTube cover was weird because I was like, I had to learn Logic Pro X. I bought Logic Pro X with a computer like 6 years ago. And I was sitting there trying to learn everything about it. And I was like, well, I'm just going to do a cover just to get the ball rolling so I can learn how to record on this thing. And sure enough, like I worked on it for like 6 years until finally I was like, man, I think this is good enough that I like 6 years on and off.
That specific track though.
That specific track, like over, like then I would do a record and then I'd come back to it and then I would do like new filter songs and then I'd do a movie score and I'd come back to it and then I'd, do another movie score and come back to it. And and when I got done, I was like, boy, this is really tight. This is really good. And
6 years
I guess,
later, I think I got something here.
yeah, I guess I want people to hear it. So
Well, so it started off as a way of kind of, getting to know software, but, like, what was it that kept you coming back to it time and again?
it was like, okay, well, I did the guitars last month. Maybe I'll do the drums, or I'll do the drums, and I'll program the drums and get those cool, and then I'll add guitar to it, and then like a month later I do the bass, and then finally it was like, okay, well, I guess I got to sing it. So I was like, and I had no real plans on ever showing anyone. It was just kind of an exercise in learning how to run this new equipment that I had. And when I got done singing it, I was like, man, I really like this. This was really fun. And maybe my fans would like to hear it too. So I just figured, why not?
Yeah, and also, like, I spent 6 years on and off with this thing, I might as
Yeah.
well, like, release it out into the world.
Yeah.
Was the initial goal to sound as close to, you said it's a tribute, was it,
It was
were you
it
trying to
was
get it close?
I mean, I didn't want to do like my own version, but like I wanted to program the drums like really perfectly, like the way they were intended by Larry Mullen. But when you put it into a computer these days, like you put it in, it's perfectly gridded up and like perfectly performed. You can make it sound like perfect. And so when they recorded it back in 1983, 84, it was, hey, good luck. They roll tape, and he might have had a click track or something to try and stay on on beat, but like, like now you can tune everything. You can quantize drums perfectly, and you can do everything. And so I wondered what it would sound like as perfectly performed as possible. And I think that's what was striking about it, was that it was like, man, this is like a perfect rendition of what they did originally. And it was just, I thought it was exciting to hear it so pristine.
This is always an interesting topic to me because, I hear a lot of opinions about sort of mistakes, about imperfection kind of being part of the art. The fact that they didn't have the perfect tools to make it maybe is what
Mhm.
made it so magical in the first place.
Oh yeah. Well, no, I mean the original version is still the best. I mean, the YouTube version is still going to be awesome. It's. I mean, those guys are awesome in my book. I mean, I like probably 10 bands that are, to me, just perfect bands, like Deftones, or U2, or Pink Floyd, or Led Zeppelin, or Rolling Stones, Beatles. Um,
Pretty
you
good
know,
bands, yeah.
yeah, they're all pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, I bring that up specifically because, like, obviously, you've been doing this for a while and, like, Logic, I think you said, maybe like a decade or so ago that you started using that specifically. In terms of the recording process for you right now, like, how much of it is actually done directly into the computer, and how much are you still performing live?
Oh, well, everything's originally performed live. Like even all the last two filter records, including this new one, which is going to be called The Antidote. In a year from now, it'll come out. Um, that has live drums, and very lightly edited. Um, I've heard people critique the algorithm. People were like, "Oh, he left his vocals kind of raw," and I was like, "Yeah, I didn't want to quantize. I don't want to Post Malone. You know what I mean? Like
That's
Post
such a
Malone has
weird
that.
criticism, especially these days, right? Yeah, because
Yeah,
everything's so overprocessed.
yeah. And so I didn't. I love Post Malone, but like his hip hop, that structure they quantize and they perfect, and it's auto tuned and cleaned up. But there's a lot of bands that are like that. where it's like, holy cow, dude, you've left no airs whatsoever, no, not even vibrato. You know what I mean? Like, um, so I try not to go too heavy into quantizing because of my favorite bands, because of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and they like to keep it live, and U2 and all those guys, Deftones, it's not super quantized. So with Filter,
Yeah, I mean, I also think that bands and musicians that have been doing it for a long time, it's really interesting to hear the progression of somebody's voice over time. You know, those really like I'm not saying this is like late in your career, but if you listen to some of the like later in career albums by people, and you're like, that's a voice that's been through some shit over the years.
yeah. Yeah, well, you just gotta keep moving. You gotta keep growing into whatever it is, and adapt as you get older. Like I don't scream as like as crazy as I did when I was doing short bus. You know what I mean? Like I was crazy back then. So I just try and sing in tune as much as I try and sing as close to the record as I can without like overdoing it, because the next thing you know, you're blowing off gigs and you can't sing live for more than, a couple of shows in a row because you're screaming so hard. And at 57, there are limitations, so you just have to try. But Filter's been a great live band for the past like 10 years. I'm excited about how great Filter is, and how the fans have responded to us, and festivals and stuff like that. People are like, wow, Filter, holy cow, they sound good. So
What happened 10 years ago?
I picked the right guys to be in the band with me. I for the past 10 years, like Johnny Radke and Bobby Miller, and on guitar, but Johnny Radke on guitar, Bobby Miller on bass, Elias Mallon on drums. But because the band is, constantly on tour or not on tour, or I'm back home doing a movie score or something, all those guys have to be in different bands to try and keep their hired guns, kind of, not, I hate using that term, but like Elias Mallon is on tour with Kesha right now. So, you know, and I have to work around their schedules sometimes, which is fine. They're worth it. I mean, Tosh Peterson was out with us. He's Lady Gaga's drummer now. He was out with us in March of last year.
Yeah, I mean, and certainly, like, as somebody who had been in bands with with other musicians, like you know the power of like giving people other outlets to
Sure.
produce their own music or write
Yeah.
songs. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
Um, yeah. So it's funny, like the conversation around around screaming on short bus. Like I feel like I don't know, maybe I'm overstating it, but that just feels like a metaphor for being in your 20s, right? just like
Yeah.
just like every like getting everything you can out onto that record, and
Yeah.
that's a pretty good document of where you were at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. A frustrated kid, and mm, I really liked heavy music. I mean, I still love and adore like music that just rips your face off. And, I wanted to make sure that I delivered that as a singer back then. So I just tore people's faces off with my voice, and I just went for it, you know. And I still do it. I still do it. I mean, I still go for it like really super hard when I sing. I still totally, especially on records, because records you can scream your balls off and then take 2 days off and come back a week later and have some tea and then scream your balls off some more, and you know what I mean. Like you can really record anything you want. But I found that melody and lyrics are the most important thing, and screaming and all that kind of stuff is okay. But like really being musical is where it's at for me. That's what I like doing.
I find that a lot of people that I talk to who, early on were really just beating the hell out of their voice in order to keep going, had to take like lessons or learn how to sing different ways. I mean, has your actual singing itself evolved over the years?
Yeah, I aim for the note, and if it's raspy, great. If it's not raspy, don't force it. Don't force it. Just hit the note and see what happens. Because Chris Cornell actually told me, he's like, singing is like a golf shot. One day you wake up, your voice is hoarse. Okay, use it. You use that strange hoarseness that is, be musical with it. And then the next day it's clean or clear, and you just kind of you use that, and that's the kind of the thing is you just have to adapt and work with what you have. You know what I mean? And be musical with that. Like if you have a guitar and you plug it into an old amp and that's the only amplifier you have, like you're like, okay, well, maybe I'll punch the gain up or I'll turn the treble up a little bit, but like this is my sound, so make it work. You know what I mean? The same with anything. As you get older, you're like, huh, I don't want to scream all the time. I love screaming and I love the texture of it, but I also like melody and I like, I like lyrics and I want to pour myself more into that. You change and you grow and you hope that the audience is okay with it, which they have been for me. It's been great.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always I can't remember. I was talking to somebody about this recently because I think there's always going to be a certain amount of people who aren't going to follow you necessarily to that next step, and that's just something that you
Oh,
have to.
I lost tons of people with like take a picture.
Which was that was the second album, right? I mean, that
Well,
was
it was the second record, and like my friend said his son came in and said, "Well, Filter's gay." Take a Picture was such a mellow song, but I came from what I consider to be the heavy alternative crowd, like Smashing Pumpkins or Nirvana or Soundgarden or Nine Inch Nails on the industrial side. Even Ministry has like mellower songs. You know what I mean? Even the heavy Ministry industrial that I was so inspired by when I was young. But to me, I wanted to have hills and valleys within my career because I could sing with this crystal clear, boyish voice.
mm,
And I liked that. I didn't wake up every day and just like, okay, here's another heavy song. Rah, like I wanted to grow as an artist and to to kind of show how different I could be from even my first record. And the first single was Welcome to the Fold and people were like, "Okay, that's Filter." But then when they heard Take a Picture and Take a Picture was so massive,
yeah,
it was such a huge hit that it was played on like Kiss FM out here in Los Angeles, which is just pop music. They don't even have, they don't even play like Q101 in Los Angeles would play heavy Filter. They'd play Welcome to the Fold. At Kiss FM, no way. They would never play Welcome to the Fold. They're going to play Take a Picture though. So people were like, wow, this is such a jump from Hey Man, Nice Shot and Short Bus, even though Short Bus had Stuck in Here, which was very mellow and pretty. And Thanks Bro, or not Thanks Bro, So Cool, on and that was another mellow song that was really pretty and kind of dark and bittersweet. And people heard Take a Picture and they're like, "What the hell is this? Are they just selling out? What are they doing?" And it's like, "No, dude. When I played it for the record company, they were like, 'Wow, we had no idea you could do this. It's such a departure.'" And I'm like, "I know, but I don't want to be limited in what I do as an artist. So I think if I sequence the record in such a way that it starts off heavy and then it gets kind of mellow and then it gets heavy again and then mellow again, like maybe people would understand our sound." and the record company was fully behind it. They were completely like, yeah, okay, great. Well, we like take a picture's probably going to be a huge hit. And I was like, okay, well, cool. I'm glad that it is, but it wasn't written for that. It was written because I was in a really dark place in my life, and I wanted to talk about how good I felt while like drinking or something. And yet there was this train wreck of happening in my life as I was drunk. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's like what happens on either side of that.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, there's the music is the feeling of being euphoric and having, a buzz, but the lyrics are about like, hey, you're crazy, you're acting like a fool, stop it, take my picture because I won't remember us because I was blacked out a lot of the time, and I don't remember a lot of stuff. So I wanted to kind of capture that feeling and put it out there. And when you're an artist, you're really, you know, puritanical. You want to live your art. So, I mean, I remember on the record, title of record I did, I'm Not the Only One, which is when I broke up with my girlfriend. And like, I was like, just roll the tape. I'm gonna just sing whatever comes out of my mouth for this song, and lived it, and was crying by the end of it. And I just let it rip. And I think that's valid. I think that's important in music, and I knew that title of record was going to be promoted really well. And so I wanted to make sure that the record had legs, and had a deep connection to what we were talking about, which was the insanity of being a kid in the '90s who got a record deal and went off and sold millions of records and lived, you know what I mean, and got in trouble and all that kind of stuff. Because I think that's I mean, like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That's pretty much his insanity wasn't really exaggerated. And that's what I thought title of record should be about. It should be about the craziness of like our generation, the X generation going crazy, Generation X.
I should have gone back and read interviews around it because I'm putting this into context. Again, your first big hit, knowing what that was about, I'm sure that was something that was being picked apart lyrically by people, right? And
Mhm.
I think you were pretty upfront about the inspiration there. So going into this next album and this next group of songs that people are going to really be examining it under a
Mm.
microscope. So
Mhm.
that when you're getting really personal on the record, that like the next
Mhm.
time you're doing interviews, like you're going to have to talk about this shit in a very public
Mhm.
way.
Yeah, I wished I didn't. In hindsight, I think everybody should come up with their own thing. The reason why we said, "Hey man, nice shot," was about Arba Dwyer because the record company leaked it, and it was people were mistakenly, because I wrote it in 1991 when Kurt Cobain was totally alive, but DJs literally in Seattle were like, "This song is about Kurt Cobain. How dare he?" And I'm like, "No, it's not. The song was inspired by the public suicide of Arba Dwyer." And that leaked from the record company. And then finally, I even had to apologize to the Arba Dwyer family. But I'm like, he did hold a press conference and was on live TV and shot himself in the head. Like, you got to realize that
It was as public as a suicide has ever
yeah,
been.
yeah. And but I should have left it at that because talking about my lyrics means everybody, like, one of the coolest things that happened to me was that we had just played a show in, uh, up in Washington, and a cab driver came in after the show, and everyone was gone, and I had like my backpack, and I was leaving the venue, and he goes, "Hey, I saw a filter on the marquee, and I just wanted to come in and tell you I'm a cab driver, and I just wanted to come in and tell you, hey, take a picture changed my life." And I was like, "Why?" And he goes, "Because my dad had left me in a hotel room, to fend for myself when I was 4 years old. He just abandoned me. And I never forgave him and it really tore me up as a teenager and everything until I heard Take a Picture. And he goes, and I know that's not what the song's about. But my interpretation of the song is that it's about a father and a son, and their relationship. And for some reason, I forgave my dad. And I just wanted to let you know that that song really helped me and it changed my life. And I forgave my dad. I moved on and I don't care what he did anymore. And, and I just was like, that's kind of what I wanted because I didn't really want John Lennon to sit there and tell me every single thing about the Beatles and this is what I meant by this or this is what I meant by that. They would allow people to come up with their own conclusions, and I think that that's what I should have done when I was younger, and I should just let people come up with their own conclusions and enjoy their music the way they hear it, and let them believe whatever they want to believe about the song. You know?
Sure, but like, like in this very specific example, like you can't beat yourself up for not wanting people to think that it was a song about Kurt Cobain's suicide. Like that's a
No,
perfectly understandable reaction.
Hey Man, Nice Shot was Hey Man, Nice Shot was, we had to kind of tell people what it was really about because there were like DJs in America that were literally saying, "Oh, we don't care what he's saying, blah blah blah. This is about Kurt Cobain." And it was just and I didn't want it to get back. And I especially when I met Chris Novoselic and Dave Grohl, I definitely wanted them to know, like, hey, I never wrote this about Kurt. I wrote it in 1991. It was about this other thing. And I just want you to know when those two like were like, yeah, we get it. Because we get the same crap with like Dave had said something like, I get the same criticisms for stuff I wrote a long time ago in the Foo Fighters before Kurt had killed himself, that he wrote as demos. And he's like, people are always gonna, think that things are what they aren't when they're not. But it really bothered me when I was young and so when the record company leaked it, I was like, okay, well, fine. Then let's have that be what it's about because, but in retrospect, I mean, even back then it was like, I don't have to tell anybody what my songs are about. I should have been like that. I think probably more when I was younger. I don't have to I don't have to I don't have to be accountable for anybody. This is music, it could be, I could be talking about unicorns for God's sakes, it doesn't matter, and that's especially the way I feel these days.
As like a big music fan, are you somebody who would read like biographies or memoirs about musicians?
No, I've never really read memoir. I've watched documentaries.
You do want some like insight into the lives of the people who
Of
made that
course.
music. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I think I think it's important to dive into the minds of people. Like I watched Bono's Surrender, thing that he did on Apple TV, Apple Plus or whatever. I thought that was pretty cool, you know. But to sit there and say, okay, well, this song's about this, and this song's about this, and and I didn't really start thinking like this until probably the last 2 or 3 years because the death threats I was getting from political people. I started getting horrible death threats because songs like America and Thoughts and Prayers and, songs like that, um, and Up Against the Wall. And, people find out what it's about and I talk about it. And the next thing you know, I got 5,000 Trump supporters that hate me because, I just don't like Trump. You know what I mean? Like I don't. So like, the last thing I need is for my family to be threatened because of a political opinion. So I've just kind of dodged it. I've just kind of decided You know, I'll keep my lyrics to myself. I know exactly what they're about, and I'm happy about that. And, I don't have to account to anybody. I don't have to explain myself to anyone. It's my First Amendment, and that's what I'm going to do.
Sure, but I don't think it's the kind of thing that you need to feel actively bad about, because in this specific case, it's more like the world changed. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like the attitudes around you change, and it has nothing to
Mhm.
do with you specifically. The way that people interact and feedback and, you know, go over the top with things is
Yeah.
that's just like how the world is right now.
It's kind of a sad place. It's really sad. It's not as cool as it used to be, so unfortunately.
I say this, and I asked the documentary thing because I think that, I case by case, but also, like, in the case of picture, there's that specific example when it's a song about you really going through something, and it's you really going through something that a lot of people are dealing with, and you're being really sort of honest and transparent about it. There actually is a lot of power in revealing
Mhm.
what that song is about.
Yes and no. Um, but, when it comes to my drinking and my behavior when I was a kid, like, when I tell people kind of some of the stories, which my book is gonna be pretty funny, but,
You're working on a book?
no, I'm just, I'm musing because, if I ever write a lot of my friends are like, "Dude, you gotta write a book, man. You're great. Went through some crazy shit." But, like, part of my story is that I was really out, like, I put it out there that I got sober, that I and the reward from that has been amazing because people hear my story as an alcoholic and they're like, "Man, this guy was totally out of control." But that I've been sober for 22 years. I've been inspiring people with my story for a long time, and I get hundreds of emails or DMs and Instagram, people, Facebook people saying all sorts of great things like, I heard your story and it inspired me to get sober. And I love that because, I was very outspoken about like how crazy my life was as an alcoholic. And um when I got sober and people were inspired by that, knowing that I've helped people, I've helped, I'm not going to say thousands or whatever, but I know it's at least hundreds of people get sober because they'll reach out to me online and I take every DM seriously. And like if someone says, "Yeah, I'm trying to quit drinking or whatever, how'd you do it?" I tell them, like straight up, this is what I did and I stuck to it but you have to believe in yourself. You have to really believe that you can do it and you have to know that you can do it and even when you don't believe in yourself, you have to really try it. And people come back to me like 6 months later like, "Dude, I've been sober for 6 months." I just had a kid that's a drummer for a band who can't believe he's so healthy and he can play drums really well and he's on tour with his band and he's played like 2 weeks worth of shows and he's optimistic because he's really strong and like everything's back and he feels like he can do it. And it's just that's awesome. So I've paid a price as far as being so honest and outspoken about what I want to talk about, but at the same time I've really helped a lot of people. And, so I've it's a double-edged sword, when you're an artist and a public figure and you talk about like every little song and what things were happening in your life when you wrote it. And, I think I think it's okay to do that for a while, but if you want to close it up, that's good too. Like it's especially after the death threats, especially after that shit, like, cause I have kids, and I can't take chances with people telling me that they're gonna kill me, you know what I
It's not
mean?
just your life anymore.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, if it were just me, that'd be one thing, but I love my kids and I want them to have a normal life and, do their thing. And so that's the only thing I have to be careful of, you know.
Kind of trying to figure out the timeline here, but so you write that song. You're very clear that like, and that is not a song glorifying that, but it still took you a while to get fully sober, even
Yeah, it
beyond
took
that.
4 years. Took another 4 years. In fact, I was going to call one of my records 4 years without because I had completely lost my soul when I was at the last 4 years from 30 to 34 when I quit drinking. I literally lost my identity because I was just a drunk guy like the whole time. And it's awful. And but again, by being kind of honest with people and I've inspired people to get sober. And I have friends, dude, that still to this day have to drink like 20 beers a day, and I'm like, wow, like after everything you saw me go through, like you're still drunk and still crying and calling me at 10 in the morning wasted and the way I was when I was 26, so alcoholism is a really horrible disease, and as far as helping people with that, I'm all open to it because it is truly something that like if you fully connect to yourself and you just are honest with yourself, you can beat it.
I haven't been keeping track, but I haven't had a drink in probably like 9 years at this point, and
Mhm,
it's wild how it just changes your perspective. Especially, it
mhm.
changes your perspective when when you're dealing with other drunk people.
Yeah. I don't I like when people get a little tipsy and they're friendly and they're funny, but when people are shit-faced, I'm just like, "Get me out of here." It's just obnoxious, and I'm like and it reminds me of how I used to be, like, "Damn, dude, I was like that. Ugh, gross," like so I don't 'cause my band is they're not innocent people, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? My bass player's had incredible challenges with substance, and he's overcome them, and he's a amazing man. But, some of my other bandmates, like, they partake in drinking, and they should because they're not really alcoholic by nature. They're just normal people who wanna have a drink or 2 at the end of the night, which is totally fine. And so I have people that, smoke pot and, whatever they wanna do. I don't care. So it's around me, but no one gets shit-faced around me out of respect because, it's so gross for me to be around it at, like, "Dude, I don't wanna have to pick you up, and carry you on the bus tonight," like, "Take it easy," and no one is like that in my band or my crew. No one is like that, so and, I try and hire people that are not in the active phase of alcoholism. They can be recovering and they can be normal people, but they can't be fully alcoholic, around me. That's why a lot of my old bandmates, like I just can't work with them because they're
That's why they're
just
old bandmates.
yeah, they're just it's like, dude, you made a choice, and the choice is you wanna get wasted, and so
This is obviously like a double-edged sword, but when you sort of reflect back at having like such big success immediately out of the gate, do you feel like in terms of the path that your life has taken, that was more of a net positive or a net negative for you?
um, nothing prepares you for like, holy cow, we're like when I wrote Hey Man, Nice Shot, I was like, okay, this is this is the song that's gonna change my life. I knew it in my soul. Absolutely. And I made some pretty big bets on that song and, quit Nine Inch Nails. And
Whatever happened to them? I don't.
you know what I mean? They are amazing, and Trent's a good friend of mine, but I had to leave because I really believed in my own songwriting and my own vocals and my own guitar playing, and I just wanted to try it on my own. And, it was a ballsy move by a 25-year-old kid to leave something that was gonna be huge no matter what,
But at the
and
same time, it's the kind of thing that really you can only do when you're 25, because
yeah,
like when you're 30 and beyond, there's a certain level of security that you need.
yeah. So, I mean, "Hey man, nice shot." When I remember coming up with that, it was like, "Okay, this is the shit, bro. This is awesome." And so when that song took off, we were unprepared because we didn't release the record until, whatever it was, June or July of '95. Um, the song took off on the Demon Knight soundtrack. So the Demon Knight soundtrack, it was number song 11, and a little radio station in Colorado Springs played it, and it went bonkers, and it went viral before viral was such a thing, but it took off and was a huge hit. And like we had to like quickly finish the record and quickly put a band together and quickly do things. And I didn't really have a lot of we didn't have a lot of like time to build the band and everything like that and like get everybody in the right, scenario with it. And those early shows were pretty noisy. They were fucking noisy shows, because some of the guys didn't really play that well, uh we didn't have that internet thing where it's like I can see a kid playing guitar like Zach Monowitz, who's this amazing guitar player I saw on Instagram. He's like a 23-year-old kid. And I was like, yo, let's write a song together. And he was like, what? I'm like, yeah, let's write a song together. So we wrote For the Beaten, Up Against the Wall. And he wrote this new single that we have out called All the Good. He did most of the music for it. And I just kind of sang over the top of it. And, I can do that I'm free to do whatever I want in Filter. You know what I mean? I can work with whoever I want to. And, um, you know, I don't know where I was going with this, but when I was putting the first original touring lineup, it was like I was kind of I was scraping, I'd kind of drained Cleveland because Frank Cavanaugh was a great bass player. And that was the only I got my ass kicked by the, the drummer, or no, the guitar player of uh, the Spud Monsters kicked my ass at the grog shop because I had asked his drummer to be the drummer of Filter, and he's like, "What are you doing taking my drummer?" And I was like, "Ah," and he like punched me in the face and like, um, so it was weird, but like Matt Walker and uh uh, and Gino Leonardo, we eventually got him as a rhythm guitar player slash main guitar player, and then I wanted to work with those guys because I wanted to be inclusive and like let's be a team and be more of a band. But even in that scenario, some of the guys, just like Matt Walker, went off and was the drummer of Morrissey. And it's like, well, how can I say no to, you know what I mean? Or he was the drummer for the Smashing Pumpkins, like Billy took him right out from underneath me, like
Did you ever get a chance to punch Billy in the face?
hell no. I mean, it's kind of like sadly you got to kind of live by the rules of the hired gun. The hired gun is like he's out there to make a living and to do what he's got to do to be the biggest. That's just the way it is. And when you're a band like U2, where you're fucking huge. Like each one of those guys is a fucking is a billionaire at this point.
Nobody's gonna poach Larry Mullen from
Yeah, yeah,
YouTube. Yeah.
yeah. But Filter's never been a massive band. We've never played arenas by ourselves. We've never. We're a bigger club, small theater type band, and it's physically impossible to put people on retainers and all that kind of stuff, and so you have to abide by the rules of the hired gun, which is they want to work 24 hours a day. They want to be out at the Elias Malin. He's out there with Kesha. Tosh Peterson came in for a tour with us. Now he's out with Lady Gaga. And you have to go with it, and and so that's why when it comes to the records, it's like, well, who do I really want to work with? And I can work with anybody because, they're all out working with whoever they want to as well. So it kind of makes sense after years of doing it. And to be honest with you, Filter, I should have just called it Richard Patrick. It should have just been the Richard Patrick or what if.
Well, I was going to ask if, like, in hindsight, and maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but in hindsight, if Trent was kind of a template for you.
Well, that and Al Jorgensen. Al's ministry is a lot of people, and it's changed people over the years. I mean, their drummer, Roy Mayoga, just joined Jerry Cantrell, so they got, Pepe. And, that's just the way it is. It's like, y- y- I didn't do what Trent did initially in the beginning. Trent said, "I'm Nine Inch Nails." Trent Reznor is Nine Inch Nails. That's what it said in the record, the liner notes. Nine Inch Nails is Trent Reznor. I didn't want to go that far, but I also probably should have just been a little bit more, this Filter's my baby, and and I have a band with me that I take out with me. It should have probably have been more of that, but because there's always these guys. Oh, it was so much better when blah 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 was in the band and blah blah blah. And they have no idea what they're talking about because the reality is when we were on Warner Brothers, this was before the invention of the MP3. When the MP3 came on, record budgets, Napster, all
Napster.
that
Yeah.
shit, record budgets went fucking.
I was reading up some stories on that first record and the shit that they were throwing at you, and it's wild in hindsight.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they were the first record, it was pretty much like, well, I want to go back to Cleveland and I want to take a bunch of gear with me and I want to record in my, in a house in Cleveland. And they were like, okay. And I'm like, I don't want any big producers, or I don't want to redo it in a big studio. And I don't want to I want basically my 8 tracks to be the beginnings my 8-track demos. I wanted those to be the beginnings of the record. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, and I'm not sure I want to do any videos, or I don't know what I want to do, but I want to have total say over that. Okay. And it was just like, thank you, Warner Brothers. They were amazing. And, but when the MP3 came around and Napster and all that shit, it just completely blew everything out of the water. It was just like, bye bye. And plus, when I went into rehab at the beginning of the tour for the amalgama, that did not help the situation. But I lived, so I'm here to tell the tale.
I mean, ultimately, it was probably the right decision. Yeah, so, yeah, and there was a hiatus. The band is never officially. I guess the band can't technically break up if it's just you. I mean,
the main person in the band has to be taken care of. The main guy is me, and and I'll work with lots and lots of different people. I really love the guys I have now, because Bobby and Johnny and Elias I consider to be the main guys that I want to work with. But I still have Zach come in. I still write with Sam Chenez. I write with Sam Chenez and Mark Jackson and Ian Scott. and they produce the songs that they work on, and we have like 3 or 4 songs with them. And on this new record that I'm working on, not just the Algorithm Ultra Edition that was just released today, but this other record called The Antidote, which is going to come out sometime next year. Um, that record is amazing, and it's got the same scenario. It's like people are coming in all over the place. I have different people I write with. I wrote with Sam Tenez and Canner and Cody. I can't remember his last name right now, but yeah, I've just worked with lots of people, and I'm enjoying that process. You know.
Is the antidote response to the algorithm? It just strikes me that those are very similar words, in
Well,
at least
originally
phonetically.
I wasn't going to re-release the Algorithm, but we all wanted, my managers and me and everybody wanted to like let's give it its day in court. Like let's really promote it this
Do you
time
feel
and
like the
have a
first
new
time around
single.
it didn't really get the
No way. Not with who we were with back then. It really just kind of, they were like, can you post on Instagram that your record's coming out? And I was like, holy shit. Like, you want me to fucking do my digital promotion? Like, oh my God.
I will post it, but I don't want that to be the only promotion that goes out for that
Yeah.
record. Yeah.
Yeah. You've gotta work it. There's gotta be a label working it, and you gotta promote it. And so now I'm doing that, with my own label. So things are cool. So when The Antidote comes out next year, it'll be another self-release. Unless someone really wants to sign me and blah blah blah, and I sign a deal with someone else, but I doubt it at this point. I really like being independent.
The nature of the beast has just changed so much, right?
It's not hard. You got to spend money on meta. You got to spend some money on digital promotion, and you got to hire some radio people, and you got to hire a publicist, and you just have to make sure that you are releasing quality music, and get rid of the A&R people. Get rid of all these fucking people that are like, okay, I drive a Mercedes, and I'm coming in to help you with your record, and can't you make it sound more triple AC, and can't you do this, blah blah. Like, those guys are gone out of my life now. Like that, I don't have to deal with people that are like, come on, can't you make a hit? Can't we write a hit? Like,
I think those guys are just mostly like gone in the world. Like they're an
yeah,
endangered species now.
yeah. And now it's pretty much like I'm my A&R guy, and I've always been my own A&R guy, and even back to when I was on Warner Brothers, I was like, well, I like Take a Picture. I think it's a great song. And they're like, fucking so do we. Like, they were amazing, and
You're a music fan, what a good singer
I know
sounds
what
like.
yeah, and I should, and, during the dark years, as I call them, the 2000s, like 2010, around that era, like some of the music got a little too radio hit, like some of it did, but like,
You mean your own output?
yeah, some of my songs, I was a little bit,
You were chasing something.
I didn't want to believe it at the time, but I was like, okay, well, but the last record and the new record coming up are like totally from my world. Like, it was when I bought that computer. It was when I bought my own computer, and I really took, because like, there are 10 songs in the last that are 100% Richard Patrick. Like I had some overdubs done by my bandmates or some other people, but I wrote them 100%. There's like, a bunch of songs like that, like The Drowning, like on the Algorithm, I wrote 100% by myself. Not, yeah, the Algorithm. Yeah. That song, The Drowning, or there's a bunch of other songs like Be Careful What You Wish For, or, um, you know, there's a lot of songs that I wrote, like, without a lot of people. But it was fun. I worked with Brian Leesgang, and I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed working with Brian Leesgang again for Command Z and some of the other songs. Summer Child, he worked on with me, and he's just a great lyricist. And like he comes into it with so much of a producer's kind of vibe with his own, his own music and his own overdubs and stuff like that. But lyrically, he really crushes lyrically. And so it was really fun working on music with him on the algorithm.
Didn't escape my notice that I guess we're like 30 years out from the first record. You mentioned as
That explains the gray hair.
you mentioned
What
and
the hell?
kudos to you for keeping it that way. But you mentioned the dark years and maybe some songs in there that like in hindsight maybe weren't your greatest moments. But as you look back on that first record 30 years later, I mean, it sounds like you still feel pretty
But
proud
even
of it.
10 years ago, like on The Trouble with Angels, like No Love and Drug Boy are awesome. I love those songs. Like there's always songs that I really love. Like and The Sun Comes Out Tonight, I really love We Hate It When You Get What You Wanted, or Surprise was beautiful. And something we're doing that's pretty cool is on Spotify, we're releasing 30 songs, and it's 30 of our favorite songs from the very beginning to the very end of the our last release. And it was astonishing, like holy cow, I've really written some cool shit. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
Like
nice to be able to do that.
not to mention, like a little pat
You
on the
you need you
back,
need to
because
you need to pat yourself on the back, and
yeah.
it's nice that you've got
Yeah,
this catalog you
30
can write.
fucking years, 30 fucking years of being Filter and doing Filter and making music and going around the world and performing it with my friends. And it's an honor and a privilege. And I really thank my amazing audience and all my fans around the world. It means a lot to me, and they've made my life amazing. So